Hello, everybody. Today we have Amish Shah here. He's my guest, and Amish is the creator of a new film that's about to launch in a few weeks. We're actually recording this interview in early August, and the film launches in a few weeks. Is it about August 25th, Amish?
Yeah, you can start kind of getting on the interest list August 8th, and August 25th is when it officially releases.
Yes. So I'm so happy to have you here, Amish. I saw your film. I saw the pre-launch at a recent Ayurvedic conference in North Carolina and wasn't even anticipating seeing a film at the conference. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, movie night, great. And I was really moved and inspired personally by your film, and I'll share more about that as we're talking today. But if you could share with us your background and what led you to this moment that you created this film called The Natural Law, a journey
Mhm.
back to wellness of body, mind, and soul. So you've been inspired through your life experiences, and I'd love for you to share with us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it started when I was a kid, to be honest with you. So, in my growing up, I would always complain of like stomach aches, and we'd go to the doctor and doctor would say, here's some Pepto-Bismol, and I'd be on my way home. And then if that didn't work, then my mom would give me like celery seeds with salt and like some other things, and then give me that. And that was it. We grew up with some of these kind of like remedies, homemade remedies, but they didn't know much about it. It was just a thing that I grew up with. Um, and I remember getting bloody noses and stomach pains. Those are the two big things that I remember, and getting sick often, like a lot of congestion. Um, and so, as I got older in my late teens, early 20s, I ended up with vitiligo. And that was kind of a surprise, kind of came out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, how did I get vitiligo? And of course, going to the doctors, I'm like, look, I have a white patch on my face. Like, this is a little weird, and not that, this happens everywhere around the world, but it does something to your self-image and self-esteem. And so I dealt with that and, ended up getting some like UV therapy or something like that, that kind of it sort of worked. Um, and or some ointment or something like that, right? So again, time goes on, and in my mid 20s, I started a couple companies that ended up going like becoming very successful. I was very young. I was 25 years old, and my first company ended up making like $1 million in like when I was 25. Early in the dot-com kind of world, early 2000s, basically. And I didn't know what to do with that much money, to be honest with you. So I kind of just lived a more lavish lifestyle is the best way to explain it. Ate whatever I wanted to and drank whatever I wanted to whenever I wanted to, and I had fancy cars and houses and, the whole deal. I was like that person, just living the dream, the American dream. I had success and everything. And, you know, um, I remember getting a lot of pain during those years. And, whatever was going on in my vitiligo, that ended up turning into more pain, specifically in my stomach. And then I would get migraines, like massive migraines, where I'm like, I don't even know. I just have to take Tylenol or a leave or something, and like I'd have to take it often, to be honest with you, once a week at a minimum, or some kind of painkiller, or I just use alcohol or cigarettes or some other drug to kind of numb the pain down, because that was my way of dealing with it at the time. I don't think I really related it to anything in my life, to be honest with you. So that was the solution for me at the time, and it worked for a little while till I was 29 years old, and I remember living in this huge house in La Jolla. It was overlooking the ocean, and three exotic cars in the driveway, and a pool on the roof, and a theater room, and an elevator. I mean, it was absurd, to be honest with you. Um, and I thought I had everything. Like, look at me. I was like Scarface, right? I was like, and so, I remember being in the shower, which was probably almost the size of this room, to be honest with you. And it was like raining water, like the rainwater shower in the shower, and I looking out at the ocean in my cars. And I remember kind of getting out of the shower and I was like disgruntled and I had a migraine and like I had a stuffy nose and I was like bloody stool at the time and it was just like I was like a wreck and again I was just pushing myself really hard with work and pushing myself with partying and eating whatever I want to and just treating my body poorly. And I at that point I was just like I hate my life. Like I wish I could just end it, you know? And that was a scary thought. It happened, it was happening for a while. It wasn't just once, it was like many times throughout a year where I was just like what the heck is going on with me, you know? So I knew that to be happy, like that's what I felt like I lost was happiness, was to do what I loved. And that was to, you know, I found myself researching ancient wisdom all of this time. And even when I was building my software companies and marketing companies, even at night, I'd still be researching about ancient wisdom, about the pyramids and the Vedas and like Ayurveda and like Jyotish and like all these ancient sciences. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like they could like fly and I don't even know telekinesis and like all this cool stuff. So I was just fascinated. I'm like, is this like stories or are these real? Like, you know, what's going on? And it was pretty cool to learn that a lot of these and a lot of the stories are actually real accounts. And so that led me to a fascination. You know, I was sick, yes, and I wasn't feeling well, and I was suicidal, but I knew I needed a change. So I what would make me happy and be in my happy place was meditation, and at least just starting to exercise. Like I haven't exercised at that point in like 4 years, and I was just kind of like losing, you know, wasn't keeping active. It was like work, party, work, party, work, party, work, party. Um, and so that's really what my life was. Um, and it caught up to me and I went to the doctor because that's where you first start, usually in things like this. I had like so much pain in my stomach, it felt like a knife was being stuck through it some days, to be honest. I someone recommended a neti pot, like, and I'd go like this and nothing would come out because my sinuses were so stuffy that it wouldn't go to the other side. So I tried a bunch of things and I went to the doctor and I got my labs back and my cholesterol when I was 29, and this is now 2009. So from 2005, 2009, I was like skyrocketing, or 2010, my cholesterol was 370. And I was the second highest in the office, of the whole entire office. And this guy was like, number one was like 70 years old, obese, and you know, didn't take his care of his body his whole life. And here I am, 29 years old, like not very obese, a little maybe overweight, but not like by heavy by any means. And so it was really interesting. And it was kind of like a wake-up call. I'm like, oh my God, this has to be what the pain is. This is what the pain is being caused from. And you know, of course, after that, they recommend MRIs and CAT scans and all these other tests that are more like, can we see something that's going on in your body, you know? Because I would complain of these massive migraines and like pain in my neck and like my stomach, and so it was starting to spread where my head, like my eye would start pulsating, like it would hurt so much that I could see it pounding. And so my whole body was just an inflamed machine. I started exercising, of course, to the recommendation of the doctor, and they wanted me to take all these different pills, which I didn't do because I knew that I was 29. I was like, there's obviously, maybe let me try exercise and diet first. And so I did. I did exercise and diet first. And I started looking better, trimmer, more healthy, but the migraines would still be there. My sinus infections would still be there. My stools were loose, or they would be diarrhea, or it would be constipated one day and diarrhea the next day, and then some days there would be like a little bit of blood in there, and I'm like, no, this is something is still not right. Like I look good and I'm exercising and I've lost some weight and I have tonnage, but this something is still not right. And my numbers were, granted, they were coming down, but they were still a little out of whack. And so something was still not right. And I still felt pain, and my nose would constantly be clogged. So then I ended up getting a surgery and on my nose, because I thought maybe that was what was causing the problem. Guess what? It wasn't. My nose ended up being clogged and stuffy even after the surgery. And so it just got to the point where in 2016, after I got rid of all the companies and sold everything off, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with this like world. I'm gonna reset my life and start a new business. And I started filming a documentary on Ayurveda, hoping that one of them would tell me what's wrong with me. And that's where the birth of the whole entire documentary came from, was hoping that one of these Ayurveda specialists would tell me what's wrong with me and heal me. And so I would go to do panchakarmas, and I felt good during the panchakarmas. And Ayurveda, I was learning so much about Ayurveda. And it was an amazing experience. Unfortunately, I just kept feeling worse. So I get these detox retreats, panchakarmas, and I would feel good, but then within 2 months, I'd be like, boom, right back where I was, and be like, oh my God, like something is not right. And so 2016, 17, I just got to the point where I couldn't really function anymore, and I was like kind of like bedridden, and I just didn't want to leave the house, and it just turned into, I mean, I felt like I was slowly dying, if that makes sense. And I just took it as it was. I just sat with the pain every day and did whatever I could, and did whatever Ayurveda routines I could. I drank tons of tea. I tried to cut out whatever foods were causing pitta imbalances, but the migraines persisted and the sinus infections persisted. And so what was interesting about this is in 2017, I was on my last whim, basically. And so I decided to go to India again. You know, we filmed in India too, actually. So by this time we had filmed so many people in 2016, 2017, I put the film on hold, and I was like, I can't finish the movie. I'm sorry, because I just feel like I don't feel good, and my body's like shutting down, to be honest with you. And so I took a last minute kind of trip to India and China, and went to all these like Buddhist and Hindu temples and monasteries, and I figure out why I was in pain every day, and I didn't know what to do. I went to every extent, including Ayurveda, acupuncture, like everything. And while I was being maintained, I would still have these massive bouts of pain. So on that trip, I had a small business event that I was attending, and there was a startup there that was doing genome testing, specifically for disease, and specifically to test for what pharmaceuticals may not work according to your DNA. I was more interested in the disease side of it. So I'm like, great, like, let me try this. They seem like they're a somewhat advanced company if they've gotten that far. And this is in end of 2017. So I did my test. January of 2018, I get my results from the doctor, calls me from that genetic test and says, going through my report, what was really unique about this report was they had an epigenetic kind of meter. So it can tell you how expressed that gene is. So heart disease, 1.3x. I'm like, yep, runs in my family. Diabetes, 1.3x. I'm like, yep, runs in my family. She's going down, and there's a couple others, and then, oh, celiac disease, 5.6x. So I was like, 5.6? And she's like, yeah, 5.6. That's like fully expressed. If not, like you should pay attention to this, basically, you know? Turns out I have celiac disease, and this is 2018. I'm 38 years old. And by this time, I found out I had 8 ulcers, basically, along my intestinal tract and stomach. And I had a real diagnosis, to be honest with you. And so then I knew that Ayurveda had gotten me and kind of kept me going all this time, like, let me go all in now. And I worked with a practitioner, really hardcore one-on-one, cut out a lot of things, implemented a lot of things, got my yoga certification. I went into a state of healing. It's the only thing that I knew. And within 60 days, I started feeling better. Within 90 days, I felt like the pain starting to subside. And within a couple of years, I had removed almost all the pain that was in my body and reversed all of the, it was turning into, the infection was so bad that all the accumulations, the way that the Ayurveda works, and you know this also, is that when you have leaky gut or you have ulcers and you have celiac specifically, it doesn't digest everything, and that turns into toxic material called amma. That was being leaked through my gut through ulcers and just a weak intestine, and I wasn't being nutrition properly because of my celiac. So it was like a double thing for me. So I was losing all of my nutrition. My vitamin D was off. My vitamin, every vitamin was starting to get lower as I was getting older. I'm like, no, like what is happening to me? Vitamin D is off. Vitamin D is off. Everything's off. I'm like, oh my God, something is wrong. So um, it's fascinating that, you know, I spent 3 years reversing 38 years of damage where I was sitting in meditation in 2021. Now, like I said, I started feeling better within 60 to 90 days, but to reverse everything that it has done and live a great life, like 2 years, 3 years-ish is kind of 2 years is kind of like my 2 to 3 years. I was sitting in meditation in 2021. And again, the film was put aside like 4 years before that. And I was like, I'm done with this thing. And I remember sitting there and I had a huge smile on my face. And the day before, I was hanging out with my kids and my wife, and we're all smiling, and I was like cracking jokes, and everyone, it was like one of those like movie moments, you know, you're like, oh, and it was like beautiful. And I remember just feeling so grateful for Ayurveda, saved my life, gave me a second chance at life with my family, with my kids, with my business, with my employees and team members, and relationships with friends that I just didn't care about anymore. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to talk to anybody. That, to be honest with you, I wanted to just die. I mean, it's such a horrible thing to say, but I was waiting for me to just go. And I had a huge smile on my face, thinking in 2021, I didn't feel an ounce of pain in my body, and I was happy. And I didn't know, like tears were like streaming down my face, to be honest with you. And I said, I need to finish this film. By that point, I had filmed 35 experts like Deepak Chopra and Vasant Lad and Sri Ravi Shankar and like Mimi Granari and like all these like world's experts on Ayurveda. And it like hit me like a ton of bricks right after COVID, when things were like opening back up, that like, holy crap, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I was trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life, if that made sense. Like I had this e-commerce business, but wasn't really like bringing me any passion or joy. And, you know, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And I had this long list because I'm like a serial entrepreneur. And I was like, I took a couple of years off to not do anything. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start this 3 other things. And it was like, no, dummy, you're supposed to finish the film. So I called my editor, and we spent the last 2 years finishing the film, and it's been a labor of love. It's been 10 years since we started filming. And it has a lot of my journey in the film. That's what it ended up being. The film didn't really have direction in the beginning, and then we found out the direction is my story and my healing journey, along with the dozen other healing journeys we filmed along the way, and the 35 other experts that we filmed along the way, and hearing all kinds of ailments being reversed while I'm there at these locations. And I mean, it would be a disservice and a dishonor to me and the medicine of Ayurveda to not do this, not finish the film. So I finished the film, and now it's out. And I'm ready to share Ayurveda with the world and the wisdom of Ayurveda in an easy to understand way. Ayurveda can be very daunting. If you go to Google and type Ayurveda, you're in for a journey. And so the film, it was created because that was my journey, going onto Google and trying to teach myself and trying to figure out who's saying what, and well, who's the expert and where did it come from. And that's why I created it, because it's such a powerful medicine system and the world needs it. Again, nothing wrong with the Western medical system. I'm not trying to bash it. It has its place. Heart attack, stroke, hit by a car, truck, go to the hospital. It's not the time to look for an Ayurvedic practitioner. But autoimmune conditions and chronic conditions that you don't know where they're coming from, Ayurveda is the answer. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I've surrounded myself with so much community in that world that there's no denying its efficacy. Hearing these stories of conditions that you would never think could be reversed are in the documentary. Stage 4 cancer, colorectal cancer, some of the most aggressive cancers out there, reversed. You don't hear stories like that normally. So it just, every time someone asks me to say something about it, I get speechless at this point, because there's nothing, I can't express what I witnessed and why I'm doing this. It's hard.
Thank you, Amish. Well, that time when you were talking about when you're sitting with your family and you just started laughing and they turned to tears, and that moment of, I'm happy, I'm healthy, it feels so good, and I want to share this with others. It's very moving, that you really stuck with it. You stuck with your path, with your health. You kept asking, staying curious. And I feel like there's never been a better time than right now for people to take their health into their own hands.
Correct.
With some guidance and some proper information. But Ayurveda, the ancient healing system from India, is over 5,000 years old. So it's really time tested. But I almost feel like it was meant even more for our modern time.
Correct. I agree, actually.
Yeah. And so there's so much that Ayurveda can give, and it's really a personalized system. And I've been practicing for about 24 years as an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I've seen a lot of clients, a lot of immigrants or South Asians who come to me and they've shared, I've been living the American dream and my body is speaking to me. And I remember my grandmother grinding up these things and giving it to me on a spoon, or putting coconut oil on my body and making me stand in the sun. They remember what their grandmothers and aunties would do for them. And they would circle back many years later with this innocent curiosity, like, maybe there's something to this system after all.
Absolutely. No, I mean, as I started discovering that this is not just written and created, like, these are not mythological stories that we are discovering their truth. And they're deep and they're very profound, and they're written so beautifully in poem and poetry, and there's no denying that it has a place in our future.
Absolutely. And Amish, would you say that you've been able to maintain your health the last number of years after coming to that point and having the right diet, lifestyle for yourself?
Absolutely. In fact, it's gotten better. In fact, now I can introduce a little bit more of the foods that I had to cut out in the beginning, to be honest with you. Not gluten, of course, but like things like dairy. I cut out dairy for almost a full year, and then I slowly started introducing it again, and I can have a little bit now, and I can deal with some of that kind of stuff. And so, it's really cool to see that I'm able to reintroduce some of this stuff. I didn't realize my body was so sensitive to caffeine too. And here I was drinking a big cup of Joe every morning. And, I didn't know. And so I know now that I can't have caffeine. I can't have a lot of caffeine. I get my body it's not for me.
Yeah. So you're touching on a really important point. Like, our body speaks to us, and we're all such unique beings. So, one of our common teachers, Dr. Lad, he always reminds us, for whom is this thing medicine or poison, for whom? And so ultimately, Ayurveda teaches us how to know ourselves and then make decisions accordingly. And we can use that information our whole lives.
I agree with that. And, Dr. Suhas in the film said it brilliantly, where he said, I don't think there's anything, there's no such thing as bright doctors, only brilliant patients. They take the cue, they educate themselves, they empower themselves, and they work through it, and they get through it.
Mhm, mhm.
And I really like that. That stuck with me, and that's the truth. And there's another saying in the movie that I really love is that they say the best doctor is the one with no patients
Mhm.
because they've educated their community, they've healed their community, and they taught them how to be self-sustainably healthy. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. You know, I was going to a doctor every 2 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah, teaches us to heal ourselves and really brings us to a place of balance so we can really feel what balance is all about. And then exemplify that for our children, because I know you have a couple of kids and I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she doesn't always want to do what I say, but if I can lead by example, my hope is that some of it will rub off onto her. And this is what really touched me about your film is, my teenager is really driven to succeed in life. She wants to have everything in this life. And I want to make sure she doesn't forget about her health and about her spirit, that she can have balance. She can have great success, but also to have this balanced
Right.
way
Yeah.
of living. And I feel like your film really inspires young people toward that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, like, I relate to the younger audience too. I think I've always kind of been like that. I've always been a kid at heart, I think, if that makes sense. So you might want to call me like millennial-ish. But like this new generation, I don't even know what they call them anymore, is Gen Z or whatever it is. Um, I think that they're also wanting to take some of their health in their own hands too. I think that's a new signal that's really powerful, and I really encourage that. And as far as success goes, especially because we see all this stuff on social media, make money here, side gigs there, here's how I quit my job. We see it all day long. We're bombarded with these messages. So we naturally think, well, my way to success is going to be looking beautiful and making a lot of money. And not just for women, for men too. It's the same exact thing. And they're getting at this at a younger age now. So being beautiful and making more money at a younger age so that you don't have to struggle when you're older has become like the new cool. And I have to say, I went through that. I did the internet thing before social media was a thing. I was one of the first people on MySpace and buying traffic on MySpace. Same with Facebook, and so we were influencers before the term influencers were coming out, where it was a thing. And so we did that whole world. I did that whole world, and I quickly realized that it's a world full of misery and a lot of fake people and a lot of people who don't believe in themselves, so they have to lie to put on a show to get their money. And so they're not living in accordance to who they actually are, which is what happened to me. I kind of got pulled into it and I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm this software entrepreneur marketing guy. Like, that's who I am. And I'm the millionaire dude, like, and so it's easy to get caught up in that. It really is. Glitz and glamour are easy. It's a beautiful thing. And that's what our society is gearing us from a young age to believe. And I can tell you from firsthand experience is that it's not the answer.
Mhm, mhm.
And do what you love, and everything else from there will just automatically happen. And money's not the answer to all of your problems, I promise you. And nice cars and nice watches and clothes don't answer your prayers.
Mhm.
So
So much wisdom there. Do what you love. Give yourself permission to do what you love in this life.
yeah. It was during COVID. I was going through the like everyone probably went through their house and was cleaning stuff, right? So the garage was one of those items for us, and I pulled out this whole old box of hard drives. And I pulled out this old hard drive and I plugged it into my computer, and I had all this old music that I used to make, even some of my old videos I used to make from just stuff I used to tinker around with like my cameras at home and my music equipment at home back in the day. So I used to make music and videos just as a kid. And I remembered that's what I love doing. And so I loaded up the software for my music, and all the music I made from early 2000s worked. And I was like, I love, like where did I, the reason why I wanted to make more money was so I had more free time to make more music. But I got lost somewhere along the way. And my music didn't have any goal of making money. I just wanted to do it because I loved it so much, and that hopefully one day my music would pay for itself somehow. And I think that's what I disconnected from. I disconnected from who I was and what I wanted to do, which was probably film and music, to be honest with you. So anyway, I just wanted to leave that last piece in there because yeah, I think there's a lot of pain that can be avoided if you just follow what's going on in here.
Yeah, follow what's going on in here and how Ayurveda can help return us to ourselves, to our true nature. So
Correct.
I am excited to share your film with my daughter when it launches and with my family, my friends, my clients. How can we sign up to watch the film, Amish?
Yeah, you can click on the link that you're going to provide under this video or near this video or in your bio or wherever you're going to post it. And the other way is you can go to natural law, thenaturalllaw.com. But the link that you're going to provide will be just as good, I'm sure. And yeah, everything there will be resources, how to watch the movie. We're going to have some other cool little things I'm not going to mention just yet as a part of our launch. We're very excited. And you'll be able to watch it. And I'm very excited. You know, we're giving this movie away for free. There are deals on the table for streaming networks, but we know that we want to get this information out first and then see where it takes us, because it's worth it. So,
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to share this with my community and with the world with you all. And yeah, cheering you on along the way. Thank you for
thank you
completing
so
the
much.
film for the benefit of all. Amish.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.